We are back with another walkthrough looking at Chapter 7. This is the second part of Chapter 7. In this chapter, or this section, excuse me, we're going to look at pages 479 through 489, so it's not a huge amount of content. Review the pages between 479 and 482, but there's excuse me, no code that you need to type there. The code starts on page 482. Okay, so our goal for this section, we want to calculate and display the cost to the user for them taking their space trip, and then we are going to calculate and display the countdown until launch. Now this is a little difficult, so think about some arbitrary time frame in the future. What if you wanted to create a countdown until, let's say, how many years, days, hours left until you turn 30, okay, or until you graduate high school or until you finish college. It's not as easy as you would think to do the math for that. You think we measure years, there are 365 days, and then days are measured in hours, there's 24 of those, and then hours are measured in minutes, and there's 60 of those, and the math can get pretty complicated. So with JavaScript, we kind of look at it in milliseconds. So I talked about that a little bit in the date tutorial, but those are the big numbers that you're going to type when you're typing this code, is to once we can break down how much we have in milliseconds, then it makes it easier for us to do the math. So make sure as you go through this section that you read, again, the information in between the instructions, and they'll explain a little bit in more detail why we are converting to milliseconds. Another thing that I want you to note in this section, remember when we use get hours or get minutes or get seconds, those methods return between 0 and 23 or 0 and 59. And that may not be how we properly want to display our time. So for instance, let's say we had 5 hours, 4 minutes, and 6 seconds. It would return a 5 for 5 hours. But that's not how we view time as humans. We like to have that 0 in front of it. So you'll do some if statements that if the hours or the minutes or the seconds are less than 10, then you will put a leading 0 in front of those numbers so that your time is displayed like this, like we normally view time, instead of like this, okay? So pay attention to that section, but that's what's happening with that code, those if statements that you're doing there. Okay, there are some errors in this textbook. So when you start working on this section, please refer back to this video so you can correct these. On page 488, step 6, it only lists these 2 lines of code, but you need this line of code that's highlighted in order for your countdown timer to display. So make sure that you add this just after the 2 lines of code that you add under step 6 on page 488. Another error in the book appears on page 488, and this is where it shows you the entire function. So if you walk through the steps are correct, but when it shows you the whole function, it uses some different syntax. So as long as you have used the steps in the walkthrough, you're fine. But if you are comparing what you did to the final function that it shows on page, I think it actually starts on page 487 and then goes through page 488, there will be some differences, okay? So just complete your code from the steps. And if you need to refer back to this video, you can double check this is the way it should appear on page 488 on lines 14, 15, 22, 23, 30, and 31. Okay, that's it. This is a short little section, so it should be an easy Friday for you. When you finish this, zip and compress your folder and then submit it in walkthrough 2 on the submission area. And have a good weekend. See you guys later. Happy coding.